Yes.
Hello. Today we are going through Block 2, Unit 2, which is talking about organizational behavior and management. So this is very much in continuation with whatever the thing that we have learned, which is learning. So in learning, just to actually set the tone for OBM, I'm giving a quick recap here. We learned theories of learning. In that, we learned behavior theories, where behavior talks about that response and stimuli. I mean, basically stimuli and response to be interlinked, and classical conditioning, operant conditioning, cognitive mapping, the social learning, where we see others and then learn it, and then we even have Bandara's reinforcement model, and what are the cognitive factors, what exactly make that social learning help, right? And we also talked about what is the importance of confidence and principles of learning. In that, there is reinforcement that has been talked about, and continuous and intermittent reinforcement, punishment, extinction. So these are the things that we talked about in the last unit, right? So after giving the quick recap, we are going to actually go through those particular social learning again when we actually go through OBM. So now let's start with OBM, which is Unit 2. It starts with explaining what exactly OBM is, how to implement this OBM, okay, and what is the ethical aspect which is linking this OBM, and what are the areas this OBM really goes into, and advantage and understanding using this OBM in organization, kind of a thing, right? So now the next is discipline part. So this is what the Unit 2 covers. Right? To start with, first talking about what is OBM. To actually give the importance, this is
Hello.
the most
Nilpur.
frequent question as
Nilpur.
far as this entire unit is
Okay.
concerned.
Mm,
Yeah, perhaps you're talking about something.
No, no, carry on. I put him on mute.
Okay, so this is the most frequent question that could really come in the exam. That is, what is OBM, right? Discuss about OBM. What is OBM? So this is the sort of question that really came. So now to start with, right? It is like the name really suggests what exactly OBM is. This is organizational behavior management. So what you are trying to do, you are trying to manage the way organization behave, right? So you actually make plans to actually do that particular behavior. You bend that particular way the organization behaves. You monitor what they are behaving. You actually understand what is the root cause of such behavior. You align that particular behavior with whatever the goals that organization really wants. But net in and around, the name suggests, whatever that name, right, is you are actually managing the organizational behavior. That is how the organization behave, right? It depends on the principles of psychology, which includes analyzing the behavior and how exactly that behavior can be developed, how you are going to evaluate that behavior. So all these things are really involved in the organizational behavior management. Behavior management is a style of interaction that focuses on a positive and pleasant approach. Okay, so I mean, I think this is the statement which is given in most of the places, where this is not a negative approach, this is rather a positive approach, where you are trying to actually behave, you are altering the behavior in a positive way rather than in a negative way. Okay, so that it promotes that, I mean, well-being within that organization, and organization goals are aligned, so everybody grow together, right? That is exactly what the point is. So it is more on positive nature. So the moment somebody is talking about changing the behavior, right, it is not always good, right? You don't really have to actually change the behavior of a person. So there is a moral aspect as well that really comes into picture. Who are you to actually change and judge the behavior, kind of a thing? But here The tone is more on the positive front where you are trying to actually manage the behavior so that the organizational goals are aligned and everybody, you know, come up together, right? So that is exactly what this point is. So the question is like, what exactly is the main thing that is right? I mean, in order to manage your behavior, the first and foremost question that to answer is, okay, what makes them behave in this way at this point of time, right? And what exactly that I mean, people want, right? What is the reward that they are actually looking at? So the reinforcement becomes a very, very critical aspect when it comes to organizational behavior management. So then only you will be able to alter the behavior. So you need to understand what is the source of this behavior. You need to also understand that in order to actually make people do this or do this way, how I need to reward them, right? So this is one of the critical thing. So reinforcement is one of the critical aspects as far as entire organizational behavior is concerned. We have already gone through reinforcement part in the other chapter, right? So this is like a pure repetition of whatever the other chapter is saying. So reinforcement theories believe that performance of a particular behavior or a desirable consequence is essential. So for the performance, the consequence is very, very essential. We also talked about that how critical the consequence should be, right? I mean, basically, if the consequence is relevant to the person, then only they need to be, they will get involved, right? Anything that satisfies an active need or one that removes the barrier of need satisfaction. Okay. So basically, it could be an active need that is satisfied, or it could be like removal of the barrier, right? So basically, we talked about that positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement kind of a thing, right? So this is active and removing of the barrier to satisfy a need. For example, let's say here the thing is, okay, if you are doing this, you are going to get a salary increment or a promotion. This is like satisfying an active need. Removing a barrier to need satisfaction, if you complete this particular work, you can go early home, right? So it is like removing the barrier for need satisfaction. So reinforcement theories coupled with content theories of motivation provides management a good approach for employee motivation. So, so I'm not too sure to remember, to remind again that we went through the content theories, right? Content theories and process theories of employee motivation in the motivation chapter. So all Maslow's needs theory and another one, three model one,
Adler's,
two model one.
Hoxberg.
Yes. So Heisberg or whoever who told two. So all those are content theories.
Lawyer, Potter and Lawyer.
Correct. So those are needs theories, right? So those actually tell what are the needs of an employee, which really creates this motivation. Reinforcement talks about how to actually fulfill those particular needs. So combination of reinforcement and then those motivational need related theories, they actually provide a very good framework as far as the entire management is concerned, so that management can follow that and make sure things are fine, right? Again, we talked about learning process, right? So learning process, people learn to behave in certain ways because of the consequences of past behaviors. So they actually learn things based on whatever that they have observed in the past. OBM takes operant conditioning theory and systematically applies it to manage workplace behavior. However, so basically, I mean, OBM is all talking about this kind of stimulus and response. But one big difference here is OBM is not really talking about just stimulus and response. It also talking about why that behavior is really coming, so that they can address the root cause of it, right? So OBM is not just about the end goal. It is also about the reasoning on why. That is exactly what this point is. It recognizes the importance of social learning. OBM also takes into the consideration like social learning. So entire chapter net to net, whichever we read in unit 1 is something that OBM really banks on. Okay. It banks on behavior theories. It banks on social learning theory. It really emphasizes whatever the reinforcement, the technique that we are talking about, right? So again, some of the things, so organization need employee behavior to conform workplace performance standard. So it also talks about that importance of training, right? So that people go towards that particular behavior. We talked about training as well yesterday. So Skinner's behavior based learning theory required workplace managers to establish individualized reward schedules to modify behavior called behaviorism. So utilize reward based system is what Skinner told, make sure that the behavior is fostered, right? Bandura, this is one more guy who talked about, is people learn from what others are getting as rewards as well, not just whatever that you are getting as a reward, even they observe what others are actually getting, right? So that is Bandura's, theory. This is also something that we read in the last chapter. Right? So manager implications to the workplace manager note that employees learn acceptable social behavior by observing the treatment to other employees. So they see what is the treatment other employees are getting, and then based on that, they actually learn. Okay. So it also supports the concept that, so basically even the training sessions that people conduct utilizes the social learning aspect. They give examples, they show examples, they talk about case studies, they ask people to enact certain things. So they use all these concepts so that they have a better learning. So net to net, the entire reinforcement theory is revisited exactly what is there in the previous chapter here. To give very big concise point instead of going through all those things, first part talks about what exactly is the importance of reinforcement. What is reinforcement, right? Reward and motivation, combination of motivation and this importance of that particular reward, etc., etc. Okay, next talks about learning process. Okay, and the theories which are associated with whatever that we learned in the last chapter, right? Theories that are associated with it. It talks about that operant conditioning and all, and OBM improvises saying that it also puts Y part of it. The social learning part which we learned, even that part. Okay, and Skinner who talked about this behavior theory, and Bandura who talked about saying that not just your behavior, it's also the other behavior. So these are all the other theories that we talked about. Okay, and so even down for that matter. So these are all the theories that were there in the last chapter. So net to net, that is exactly what is revisited in this. So now we are going towards, so things that we need to remember. Yes, there is a question around what is organizational behavior management, which could actually come all these aspects. So which not only the principle, and what is the overall concentration of OBM, what is the importance of reinforcement, and what could be the outcomes of it. Depending on number of marks, whatever that is being asked, these are the parts that might have to be covered. So if it is only definition part or 3 marks question that comes, you can probably stop with these two sections. But if it is more 6 marks or 10 marks, you might have to cover some part of reinforcement and some part of outcomes as well. Okay. So manager should understand how employees value outcomes. So basically, so what is the employees value to the outcome? Again, this is again talking about reinforcement itself, right? So there are actually, this is the only point which I see as something which is different, where there is an intrinsic consequence or outcome, and there is an extrinsic consequence as an outcome. So when you are actually designing a reward, you can have an intrinsic way, you have an extrinsic way, where you do something. And what is the intrinsic way? So there is something that you did, and because of that you felt happy. There is no physical reward that you got, you felt happy, right? That is an intrinsic consequence. Extrinsic consequence is, okay, yeah, you did something, you did this and you got a bonus. That is extrinsic consequence. So both factors could really play in the reinforcement, right? So, and thing that would be remembered is there could be a conflict between intrinsic and extrinsic factors. Okay, so when that happens, then motivation is impacted in a big way, right? So basically, I mean, company might be giving a good salary for a job which you are not happy, because it's like a very boring job, let's say, right? If you do that, you will get salary increment, but if you do that, you are not happy. So there is a conflict, right? So in that way, in that case, motivation is something which is like seriously impaired. So extrinsic reinforcement reduces the impact of intrinsic. So basically, that extrinsic would really, impacts the way intrinsic really, acts. I think this point is very obvious. So behavior shaping, the name itself says what exactly it is. It is shaping the behavior, slowly chipping away, like, like, and going towards whatever the behavior that you would want. So this is like slow chipping. So what it means, there are steps that are involved. Step one, go towards this, then do this, then do this, then do this, kind of a thing. That is what is shaping here, right? So slowly you are mending it. So it occurs more. So so at each desired step, okay, so you need to make it very explicit what exactly the desired behavior is, so that learner can actually go towards that step. For each step you are going to make it explicit. Okay, so even though the entire part is not clear, for each step there is a clarity that people would have got, and they actually keep on moving towards it. Okay, so that is what shaping is. So now we are going into another question which was asked, which is the implementation on this organizational behavior management program, right? In an organization, when you actually make any program, first thing is about plan. So this is the plan that is being talked about, right? So how exactly you're going to put a behavior intervention. So this can be called as behavior intervention plans or behavior management intervention, BIP or BMI. Okay, so intervention is the word that we already learned in OD, I think Block-4, where so this is like actionizing whatever that you would want to do, right? So this is one of the question which was asked. Okay, so explain behavior intervention plans in June 2020. Okay, so what is this plan? Okay, so this is a plan to be created once series of intervention have been tried, have not been successful. So basically, you think that there is something that you wanted to achieve, and there are series of interventions that were actually, created to achieve that, but you found that employees are not going towards it. So they are behaving odd. They are not really up to your expectations. They are not going towards it. So now you need a plan to actually understand why they are behaving that way, what is the root cause of it, whether there is anything wrong with the targets that you have, etc., etc. There is an analysis that is required, right? And post analysis you come up with that particular plan. So that is what is this behavior intervention plan is all about, or behavior management intervention. Okay, so one of it. So this comes when there is series of interventions that are being tried and they are failed. Now you are starting to analyze how the behavior needs to be included in the organizational activity and becomes a legal document. So it is something which is procedural in nature and very much legal as far as the entire organizational activity is concerned. Plan may be changed if it needs to be, right? Once the plan is made, as far as the behavior intervention plan, it need not. So even though I told it as a legal document, it doesn't mean that it is going to be like going to be same, right? As you actually assess your behavioral changes, as you do the functional analysis, etc., etc., you might actually make the changes to the plan. Whatever the initial plan that you would have created would not remain same at always, right? Behavior plan should only be created if employee behavior in some way or the other affects reaching the goals of an organization. So why you are actually doing all this? It is not because you have excess of time, right? You try to actually align goals, and somehow the goals are not getting aligned in the behavior of the employees. Then only you are doing the analysis, right? If people are moving towards the goal, what is the need in analyzing their behavior and then changing their particular behavior and all those stuff, right? So you feel that there is some misalignment, and that is what you are actually doing to align it. So in this, the first part is the functional behavior assessment that we do. Okay, so what is functional behavior assessment? Okay, and then after covering what is functional behavior assessment, I'll come back to these 3 points. Okay, functional behavior assessment is conducted on the person or a group, right, to understand target behavior. Why behavior? Why? Right? This is the part that we are talking about. Why people are behaving that way? That is exactly what FBA is. Okay, sounds like FBI, FBA, functional behavior assessment. Okay, so it's an approach which look beyond the behavior, right? I mean, it is understanding the causes, right? So it also, it's not just about one aspect of that cause. It tells why people start behaving that this way, what exactly is making them to stick to this behavior, and what makes this, what can terminate this behavior. So all these factors would be analyzed, right? The function of a behavior is not considered inappropriate. So basically here, as I said, right, it is like, I mean, we are not talking about function of the behavior. We are talking about the entire behavior on a whole, right? So it is not like how they are doing it. Rather, the entire behavior part is being, analyzed here. Misbehavior may be due to performance deficit. So maybe there could be some probable root causes. If they, maybe they are not skilled enough to do it. So even the skill aspect is something that is could be one of the reasons. Okay, so some of the technologies that the field of OPM uses are, so in order to do this analysis, it uses behavior system analysis, performance management, etc. We are going to read those particular systems in details. I am not going to explain what is behavior system analysis and performance management. There is a section which actually comes down. Okay, so obviously it is assessment of the behavior. So this is related to the psychology, behavioral engineering, and how the industry overall behaves, right? So all these aspects really are covered here. Okay, functional behavior assessment would answer following questions. Does individual understand the behavioral expectations for the situation? Do they understand, first of all? Okay, do they realize that he or she is engaged in, so do they understand whether they are doing it in a wrong way? First of all, do they really get that grasp, right? Does individual have a power and control on that behavior? Even if he understands, can he actually change it, right? Does he or he require any support for it? Individuals have skills, whether, okay, fine, what are the skills that are required here to support so that they can have that control, right? So these are all some of the things that functional behavior assessment tries to find answer about. Okay, now coming back to the intervention plan. The plan, first step is the functional behavior analysis. Okay, and this functional behavior analysis is done on all the team members, not one member. You're talking about creating a plan, so you need to analyze everybody, right? You need to assess a complete team. And it is openly discussed with the team, saying that, boss, this is what we are observing. We are trying to actually assess what is the root cause. We are trying to help you, or kind of a thing, right? And it requires a periodic review, and review reports are created so that it is tracked closely. So it is not really very random, right? So it is not about just doing everything in on a fly. Rather, it really requires a measurement, and it counts. Like, let's say if employee did not wear tie, and you are trying to bring that particular culture, you are going to count how many times earlier he used to actually skip wearing the tie, and now did he produce something like that, right? So there is a review report. So now we are going into the 5-step plan of our organizational behavior management program. So this is one more question that came in steps of organizational behavior management program asked twice. Okay, so now what are the steps? So most of the steps are very, 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 uh, you can easily guess those steps. Okay, so generally when you are creating the step, right? So what will happen? First, identify performance behaviors. Think very carefully. What about what you expect from it? First, think what you are actually trying to do in this program, right? So, what is the objective of this program? That is the first point. The step is all about identifying, okay, what exactly you are trying to do, okay, and identify conditions, behavior that prevent occurrence of the desired behavior. So, what is stopping them to do? Basically, that behavior analysis that we talked about, or assessment, functional behavior assessment. So, you are going to identify what exactly is the reason for that particular behavior, right, and how you are going to measure it. So this is the step one, where you are trying to assess what you are actually trying to get at to, and what is the core reason for it, and what how you are saying that they are not adhering, right? So basically, can you actually measure? The second step is, okay, now I'm going to actually go towards a target. So identify the target. So here I assessed current. So now I'm identifying the target, and for that I'm establishing the baseline. So I'm saying that, okay, currently people forget to wear, or rather they don't wear tie at least 3 times in a week. Now I need to reduce this to 1 time a week. You can't really make it zero in certain cases, right? So basically, like that. So you need to put a baseline. So you are saying that current baseline is 3 times a week employee is missing wearing the tie. So I'm going to actually make it to the 1, right? Identify the existing consequences. So what is the motivation that is going to, that is actually, going towards this, right? So I'm going to identify that motivational aspects. So in this, I found there is a word which is wrongly printed is what I thought. So I changed this particular wording. So let me go through what is the wording which is given in the textbook as well. So which I thought is just a misprint rather than the intention. Okay. So step 3 says identify existing contingencies. Okay. I thought contingency is a wrong word when I read this particular text. So I changed it to consequence. So let me read what exactly it says in the book as well. Okay, identify what stimuli precedes the behavior. What is that which causes the behavior? Manager identifies the conditions that both desired and undesired behaviors. Then identify existing consequences. What happens after employee wear these particular safety shoes? When they do not wear them, chances are that desired behavior is rewarded less than the undesired behavior. Maybe employee says are now uncomfortable and it goes against the group norm and people wear them is ridiculed, right? So I thought some of contingency word didn't actually click to this particular description. Hence I replaced with consequence, because it is like identifying the existing consequences is another thing which is used here, which is more suiting according to me. Okay. So identify what is the reason for the behavior, how the things are really happening, and etc. etc. Right now, strategize. Now strategize. What is what is that you need to do? Right? You need to actually put an intervention plan. You know the base rate here. You know what is that which is causing the base rate. Now put a plan. How to improve this base rate? Okay. So how you can actually create such an environment where people are motivated to wear tie, right? Evaluate after you implement the intervention. The last step is evaluating. Okay, so simple thing, anywhere steps really come. First thing is to actually identify why you want to do it, what is the vision that you have, right? And have some kind of why you are actually really thinking to do. Step 2 is always about, okay, now exactly get what is the current situation is, right? Put up a baseline. Next, going into the consequences. So why part, you inquire why, and then you strategize, and then evaluate, so that it really makes a difference. So as you evaluate, you'll get to know whether your techniques are working or not. Okay, so those are the 5 steps. Okay, so now we are going into another section, which is ethics. So this is also something which was asked in the exam. What are the various ethical concerns while following the organizational behavior in management? Okay, so these are the, very, very simple. Why ethics is coming into picture as far as OBM is concerned. As I specified early in the chapter, right? We are talking about managing the behavior. Who are you to judge that this behavior is right, this behavior is wrong? Isn't it morally incorrect that you are trying to actually judge a particular behavior and trying to mend? So those are the questions that were actually coming, right? So why do you think you need to actually change the behavior? So everybody is actually correct in the way that they behave. They have the context, they have the reason why they are actually behaving. That some philosopher felt it is unethical. Okay, but what exactly is the reason why they felt so? A lot of them felt unethical. Some philosophers felt unethical because of these 2 reasons. These are the 2 reasons why it is not really unethical, right? So you are, so as long as behavior is not modified so as to compromise focal person legally and morally or emotionally. Basically, here you are not trying to modify the behavior so that you target that person. You are not really morally demotivating them or emotionally harassing them, or you want to legally attack them. You're not doing all those things. So that means it is fair. You can modify the behavior, right? That is what some philosophers say. Some philosopher says that, okay, you know why and how. You also explain to the person why and how you want to actually change their behavior. Then it is moral. That person is also in sync with you. And even that person wants to change his behavior because now you explain what is the rational, why you want to change that behavior. Right? So that is what are the 2 points to support why this is not unethical. Okay. So what are the frequently most asked question on this particular ethics, right? So is it not unethical to modify another person's behavior? Is it not behavior modification worse than some other methods because it is planned rather than unplanned? Basically, you're planning and then targeting a behavior change. Is it not like unethical, right? Are not the techniques involved objectionable? So the way that you are trying to actually mend their behavior, giving some rewards is nothing but in other world bribes as well, right? You are bribing and then slowly modifying the behavior. Is it not objectionable? Right? Would not successful program cause people to lose their individuality, right? So ultimately, when you're changing the individual, right? Are they losing the individual? Once you successfully modify them, they are no more the same individual, right? Will not OBM be misused? So how do you guarantee that the way the OBM is all dealing with as a subject, can't it be, can it be misused? Maybe, right? So these are the questions that really frequently crop up as far as ethics are concerned. And there are answers as well to the respective questions. What it means is, first thing and foremost thing is, it is positive technique. I'm modifying the behavior for the good. I'm not really having any unethical intention towards. Right? This is what is the first point is talking about. I'm not focusing a person legally and morally and all. I'm trying to actually change the behavior for the good of the organization, for good of that person himself. Right? Participation, and obviously they know. I'm going to tell what I'm going to actually do. So they are aware of whatever I'm trying to do to them. Right? So there is a reason that is clearly established. The reasonable alternatives have been specified. So you have an alternatives as well, which could which could be used to achieve that particular goal. People who practice it are well informed about the ethical issues involved. So obviously, the people who are practicing it, they would not misuse because they very much know about the ethics. So this is like, okay, yeah, so it is in the hands of good people, but I don't know how this is ascertained. But anyway, so we are assuming that everybody in the organization is good who are trying to implement OBM. Okay, it advances and supports personal and social ideals. Okay, so net to net, by changing the behavior, by aligning to the organization goals and all, we are even promoting their personal and social growth. Right? So ultimately, those are things which are being enhanced rather than anything else. So that is about the ethics part as far as the OBM is concerned. Now we are going into the areas of OBM application, okay, where these are all various things that OBM does when the OBM is being applied. Okay, so performance management. You use these appraisal based system or the performance monitoring, management, rewarding people with higher performance, etc., to go and mend with behavior. Right? This is one technique. I don't really have to explain what is performance management. It is a process which involves analysis of, first of all, you will analyze what are the precursors and what is the consequences of those particular precursors. You analyze it, and then you actually put variables to decrease the unproductive or increase the productive parts. So you're enhancing the productivity of an employee by analyzing, okay, yes, if he is actually, trying to, if he is not able to solve a particular problem, why? Maybe he is not having skills. So let me put a reward in his performance saying that in next 6 months, if you have managed to complete this so and so certification, you will get a bonus, something like that, right? So you're managing his performance by identifying the root cause and also putting those particular, addressing those root causes by reinforcing them, right? So this is performance management is one technique. The second, so this is asked in exam, behavior system analysis. This is one of the questions that came. Behavior system analysis method involves explaining how component, so basically what is system analysis, right? Now we are talking about going into the behavior of the people, understanding the behavior, trying to actually mend that particular behavior, etc., etc. Now this is trying to give a big picture where you are trying to actually understand so and so unit, I'm trying to change their behavior in this way. So and so unit, I'm going to try changing behavior in this way. Now putting together these two behaviors as an overall organization, right? How the overall function of the system would be, right? I'm going to change my worker class in this way, and then I'm going to change my managerial class in this way. So now are both changes gelling together? So it is like the analysis which is going to help an organization to see the big picture, how overall functioning of the system would work when you have these systems interact with each other, right? So most important value of BCA is that it allows us to analyze organization outside the basic three-term contingency of, okay, yes, just precursors like, okay, what is the reason for the behavior? What exactly is the reason? What is the consequence? Apart from these three that we talked about in all the chapter, it is looking at a big picture, allowing organization to see how things really interact with each other, how these behaviors are coexisting within an organization. So if I'm changing one, how the other systems are getting affected because of that. Right? As a system, one can identify the areas of improvement that will produce largest positive impact. So when you look at it on the top, you can prioritize things. So you can see what is the big thing that is going to impact in a big way as far as the entire organization is concerned. And then based on that, you can plan and you can probably aim, do all those particular things. So it is like doing the analysis at a very systematic level is what this particular thing is. Right. So now behavior based safety. Okay, so basically, it's movement safety comes one blanket thing. All those safety aspects would come into picture, right? So, I mean, how behavior aspect is going to reduce this job injuries or etc. etc. So, safety behavior part of it is what this behavior-based safety is. Okay, so now advantages of understanding and using organizational behavior, never asked, but I think this thing is very, very straightforward, right? Make your business flexible for the external changes. So you're actually preparing for the worst. You're making your a very good team. Ultimately, when people are well behaved towards the goal, you have a very good team. they have a good relationship among themselves. Okay, and brand of your company will improve. So overall, you are actually, improving the brand by having all good employees, right? So your brand will actually will be better. These are some of the advantages. Okay, so discipline is the punishment aspect, right? So ultimately you are trying to apply disciplinary measures if you think that there is something which is very, very inappropriate. So typically the intensity of the punishment will be depending on what exactly is the behavior and what is the intensity of wrong thing that they did, right? So there are cases where we know that CEOs themselves were like just given uh, and given a notice, and not even given a notice, they are just like pushed out of the organization because of certain behavior, right? Uh, so presidents of nations also had this particular trouble of disciplinary action. So it all depends on the seriousness of it. But in general, disciplinary action would not be very, very severe, and it actually be slowly increasing when we are talking about certain things like, okay, you are observing an employee who is doing this. So first you will give warning, next you will escalate, next you will escalate. So generally things would slowly progress, but unless and until the behavior that we are talking about is very, very immoral, it will not be a very sudden and intense, right? So, so now, so what are the key things as far as the punishment? If punishment has to be effective, right? Deliver punishment immediately. So as soon as you see, it has to be punished immediately. Delaying it is not going to create that particular effect. Give moderate levels of punishment. Always there is always a thing that says that give an elbow room for people to come back. If you corner them in such a way that they can't escape, or they don't have a thing to actually improvise themselves, they don't have a route to actually go back to normalcy, then it is not going to be good. So give moderate levels of punishment, unless and until it is a very severe one, right? Punish the undesirable behavior, not the person. Here the target is about that behavior. You don't have to create enmity to that person, or you don't have to actually, hate that particular person. So you should target the behavior, not the person. Punish everyone equally. You need to have that thing, right? Equally treat everybody. The same offense needs to be treated in the same way. Clearly communicate the reason for the punishment. You need to be very clear why you are punishing. People need to understand. Do not follow punishment with non-contingent rewards. Okay, so non-contingent rewards. I'm not too sure what exactly this meant uh, as such, but I mean, this is like don't give punishment without having those particular non-contingent rewards. So why? I'm not too sure. Okay, so this completes the OBM as a unit.